Welcome to Armor of Truth Live number 330. Let's jump right into this. It looks like tonight in Paris that the power's out. Among other things, problems in Paris today and last night. Do you know anything about the power being out there, Summer? Have you got any?
Well, it's not confirmed, but it's all over Twitter, so.
Says Paris just had a huge power outage, coincidence, and it says here that arson attacks have commenced too. Interesting, right? And rituals. Last night,
it was really funny watching that movie.
That's a donut factory. We'll skip that. Some people are saying that it feels like we're in a mass awakening. Mankind's consciousness is expanding, and we're evolving beyond our repressive customs like marriage and gender and morality and truth. So that we're transcending all boundaries to become our own gods, others say. That the gates of hell have been flung open. And evil has burst from the shadows like a lightning bolt from the sky. And that Satan is no longer hiding. There we go. How would you respond to those to those claims? What are you seeing right now when you look around? Things are changing so fast just about every day. And people are talking about the vibe is difficult. The vibe is hard. Hashtag vibes. Let's listen to these guys for a second.
I just can't believe that in the end, when it really gets intense, as it is now, that it's Christians, it's people who actually believe the Bible are the only ones with wisdom who understand what's really going on. They're not shocked at all. Those are the wisest people I've discovered. Yeah. I didn't know that. They're the only wise people. They're the only ones who know what's up. I didn't know that. I had no idea. I mean, that shouldn't be surprising either. I mean,
nothing anymore makes.
So that's Sean Ryan and, of course, Tucker Carlson. And Tucker's right. No Christian alive today should be surprised by any of this. Let's turn this light on here. That might make it a little better. First Timothy 4 says, "Now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons, teachings of demons." What that tells us, what's very important about that passage, is that it's possible for people to receive the teachings of demons. Let's come back here for a second. I want to... Alice Bailey was one of those who claimed to receive inspiration for her New Age Theosophy writings from a spirit being by the name of Dwaj Kul, the Tibetan. And it's evident there is a demonic inspiration to what we're seeing all around us. New Age philosophies and practices. Ephesians 6:12 says, we don't wrestle against the flesh. It doesn't mean that we never do. Our three enemies are the world, the flesh, and the devil. The flesh means us. That means me. That means your own flesh. temptations. And then there's the world. And then there's the devil. So when things are going wrong, you should probably start here. Then the world, and then Satan. Because honestly, Satan's not that interested in you. But his minions probably are. Especially if you're in the faith. We wrestle against rulers, against authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So what Tucker Carlson and millions of other people around the world are experiencing at this time is that it's entirely possible that God's decree has allowed evil to expose itself at this time. So what are we seeing? I'll jump into these bookmarks somewhere. Do we have, yeah, you can see some of this from last night. Let's just take a look at this. From Ollie London, he's saying that France has officially fallen.
Philippe Catherine, je vous laisse avec lui. Ça s'appelle nu, et là, il y a un choix artistique.
Non, ou cacher un revolver quand on est tout nu. Ou...
Yeah, I want to keep that out of there. That's probably going to be some kind of copyright thing, but there's the blue man. And not only that, there was the, let's see, do they show it here perhaps? There is a, let's see, there's a, what's it called? Lord's Supper, doesn't it? Yeah, there you go. I guess I had that pulled up. Yeah, there it is. Did you see what happened last night? There's the, there's this. Gaga there, honestly, all day yesterday, I thought that was a man. And, you know, because there's a big blonde beard. And there's a child here. Very weird. You know, what is actually going on here? Yeah, here's the... So for the first time in history, the opening ceremony at the Olympics was not held within the Olympic Stadium. And there's fury. Great Britain news. Attack on Christianity. There's fury as Paris Olympics reimagine the Last Supper in drag. Surely they wouldn't do this to Islam. If you got anything, just jump in there. Let's listen to Calvin Robinson. Something he had to say. This was last year, maybe. Yeah.
Christianity is under attack. Open Doors watch list tells us nearly 6,000 Christians were murdered for their faith last year. Over 5,000 churches were attacked in the same year. Extremism and violence against Christians continues to rise. Since we handed Afghanistan to the Taliban, it has risen to #1 in the list of most dangerous countries in the world to be a Christian. Christians are dying around the world, being tortured, imprisoned, persecuted in horrendous ways. And what are we doing about it? We're quick to take on board refugees from Islamic countries who may have conflicting values and could cause disruption in social cohesion. But would it not make sense to prioritize our brethren with shared values and beliefs? In my opinion, they'd find it easier to integrate. Whilst persecution is growing around the world, we enjoy many freedoms at home. We have the protection of religious freedom under the law, but that hasn't stopped intolerance from growing in the UK. Dr. Richard Scott, as an example, a British GP, was investigated by the General Medical Council for praying with his patients. Nigel and Sally Rowe, who I'll be talking to later, questioned their son's Church of England primary school around trans issues and were told that misgendering a child is considered transphobic behaviour. My friend, the Reverend Bernard Randall, was fired from his role as a chaplain at a Church of England school for telling pupils they had the right to decide for themselves what they thought about identity politics. Doctors decided it was in Archie Battersby's best interests to die when his family wanted to keep fighting for his life. Mayoral candidate Maureen Martin lost her job at a housing association for expressing Christian beliefs on marriage. Christy Higgs lost a job as a pastoral assistant in a school after sharing concerns on her private Facebook about the politically infested relationships and sex education, which many, including myself, believe has become politically infested. Dr. Dermot Kearney was investigated after providing emergency life-saving treatment to unborn babies for women who regretted taking the abortion pill. And Mary Onowa was pushed out of her long career as a nurse because she wore a cross necklace. Unfortunately, this list goes on, and I don't have time to go through them all, but it seems it's no longer socially acceptable in this Christian country to hold Christian views. Why are we so intolerant of Christians in the UK? It's interesting to see people who claim to promote tolerance, diversity, equality, and inclusion are more often than not the ones destroying our Christian heritage, from campaigning to remove historic monuments from our churches to renaming streets and schools. I experienced a glimpse of this firsthand recently. You may have noticed I wear Orthodox Anglican garb on a Sunday because I rushed to the TV studio straight from church. What's known as choir dress has been standard Anglican dress for hundreds of years. It's English clerical tradition, my uniform, if you will. A cassock, Geneva gown, and preaching bands, topped up with a surplice and scarf whilst I'm actually preaching. Now, I received many messages of support last week celebrating such an open Christian witness on mainstream television. But the response I received from certain so-called liberal lefties was very telling. I won't name drop them for legal reasons, but popular authors and a certain Nigerian member of the royal family. Now, I am a good sport. I can take a joke as well as the next man, but this is nastiness meant to berate and humiliate. This is not jovial banter. It's the woke way. There's a heavy anti-Christian bias to a lot of this rhetoric. I highly doubt we'd see them attack an Orthodox Jewish rabbi's robes or imam's tunic. So as a Christian minister, I forgive them. They're ignorant, they know no better. Luke 23:34. But as a conservative commentator, I challenge them. Sure, ridicule Christian faith leaders. We live in a free country, which celebrates the freedom of expression. But be fair, be balanced with your satire. You've mocked Christianity, now do Islam.
There you go. What Calvin said there is very interesting. They're ignorant and they don't know better. True enough.
That's right. And as far as the mockery of the Last Supper, if you want to go to the bookmarks and see a post that James Lindsay made, it is going to be telling as far as the child that's seen in the photograph of the Last Supper, the depiction of it. If you want to,
yeah, I did a short of this last night, and it was after a couple hours. It was blocked, and people have been saying. Ollie London said too. In a lot of these videos, like if you didn't record it off your television or something, the Olympic Committee has blocked them or taken them down. It's been a huge debacle. It's just been. It looks like that. It was that the open ceremonies were really just about celebrating debauchery. It didn't have anything to do with the Olympics at all. And people they're not cool with this anymore. Most people. You know, the 3% or whatever that represent that particular group.
yeah, just scroll down to like the third one.
Right here?
Yeah, that's it.
So much as it was a man-boy relationship. That, of course, in contemporary society is to raise the specter of the most resolutely queered of all sexual positions, pedophilia, which has occupied now for some time the terrain of that which one cannot even talk about without risking stigmatization. So much as it was.
So that goes to note that they're recognizing it as a quote unquote sexual position.
Yeah.
Is to be identified with that pedophilia.
Yeah, it's just it gets to the point where it's just, you know, that's what all of this is about. Let's get to another. Yeah, that's what this is all about. It's about normalization. We're coming for your kids, they've said. And after a while, it becomes normalized. I've always felt like the plus in LGBTQ, I2S, whatever it is now, I always felt like that plus was probably reserved for the kids.
So when you look at stuff like this, it's like this is not the place to have drag queens in space outfits. And like I mentioned, I wanted to show you a lot more clips, but it's all been disabled by the Olympic Committee, by the mainstream networks, because as we're exposing them, as we're explaining to them what's going on, and we're trying to tell you the truth, they do not want it out there. People say, well, it's not fair use. Well, you know, it is fair use. I put up an image, by the way, which I thought was crazy. In this image, you will see this. They actually put children around in these acts. There's little kids, right? And this individual here, I won't show it on screen because it's too graphic, but you can look it up. He was showing his genitals, his scrotum, in front of the kid, had his ball sack out of his pants on live television. So it's wrong for us to expose it, but it's okay for them to do it. This is getting really backwards. A lot of people.
Yeah, that's how it is. There it is again. All right, so jump back over here to the bookmarks. What's next?
Well, that's regarding the power outage.
Jesus has.
Yeah. So after all of that, you know, someone's putting it out there that the Lord saw to turn Paris's power off.
Turn off your electricity.
Yeah, and if you scroll down a bit further, you're going to see the power's out.
Sodom and Gomorrah set to host the 2028 Olympics. Babylon B. What's that? Oh yeah, here's.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. Interesting. What's going on here?
This right here is Calvin Robinson saying, we knew that it was the Olympics was always a pagan festival.
Yeah, this is interesting. Let's take a look at this. This is from the Olympic Committee. Yeah, the original Olympics were quite debaucherous.
Preceding the torch lighting, the High Priestess will read a poem.
This is like the British Open, you know, with the...
Mater!
What?
Ο Χρυσοστεφάνων αέθλων, Ολυμπία, Δέσποινα Λαθίας, οι αμάντιες άνδρες, εμπείρις τεκμερώμενοι, παραπειρώνται Διός, αργικεράβνου, ή την έχει λόγων.
Those look like Doric columns.
Yeah, it's
Περιμεωμένων, μεγάλαν αρετάν θυμών λαβήν.
No, it's not a ritual. No, you people are conspiracy theorists. There's no ritual here.
Απόλλωνα, Θεέ του ήλιου και της ιδέας.
So this reminds me of last week, whenever, or I guess was it last week? I guess it was last week, whenever it was, the Republican National Convention, when they, you know, people were upset because Christians were calling out the fact that there was, for the benediction, there was a Sikh prayer. And as Nate Sala pointed out very well, you know, a benediction is a Christian practice. It's not a, you know, and the Republican National Convention really messed that one up bad. They could have had her pray. They didn't have to call it a benediction.
Exactly.
Right. That's, Well, I mean, we live in an obviously intolerant society, but it's not intolerant the way they say. You know, we listened to Calvin earlier in the UK. There was a Christian street preacher there who faced criminal charges for engaging in threatening and abusive and insulting speech.
Yeah, Joseph in the chat brings up a good point. We were watching last night when Trump said that he is not a Christian. He just kind of threw that in there.
Let me try to find that.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, we have to deal with that.
Trump at turning
Because he
point.
said, Christians, get up, get out, and vote. You won't have to vote for another 4 years. Get out there and vote. I'm not a Christian, but you need to come out and vote.
Okay, so let's see here.
That's what he said.
Probably find it pretty quick.
And they were saying, we want you out of the race. You're going to lose.
Let me go to the transcript. I can find it. Probably find it there. If you've got anything to share right now, go ahead. I'm gonna look up the transcript so that we don't have to sit here and scrub through it and bore everybody to tears. I'll try to find it here in the transcript.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I'll share that for now. Oh, I can't, can I?
For many of whom I have often told you, and now tell you even with tears, walk as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their end is destruction, their God is their belly, and they glory in their shame, with minds set on earthly things. Philippians 3:18 through 19. This is very appropriate for what we're seeing right now.
I'll let you listen to Trump for a minute while I find it.
We want to put somebody else in. How about that? It's like a prize fighter. He's losing badly, ready to be knocked out. And they say, well, wait, let's stop the fight. Let's put somebody else in. It doesn't work that way, and it's not supposed to work that way. And this really was a coup by the Democrats. This was a coup, nothing else. He got 14 million votes. I hate to stick up for Biden, but, you know, he didn't want to do what he did. He said, I'll never go out. I'll never, ever go out. 2 days later, I'm proud to go out. Because the fascists went after him. They threatened him with the 25th Amendment. They said, we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way, Joe. That's what happened. I know as many people on that side as I know on our side, so to speak. But that's what happened. They said, we can do it the hard way. We can do it the easy way. 25th Amendment if you don't go. And he said, oh, I'll go. And now they're trying to make him into a brave hero. He's so brave. Last night he made her the other.
Let's go here to 10:30. He says he's going to protect Christians. I mean, that sounds good. That's nice. Listen.
Fast. With your vote, I will defend religious liberty in all of its forms. I will protect Christians in our schools, in our military, in our government, in our workplaces, in our hospitals, and in our public square. And I will also protect other religions. We want that, right? Other religions.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
we will
That's
bring
good.
our country
That's
back
good.
together, one nation under God.
Okay. I think I've got it here. 35. Somewhere around there.
Their thugs are so desperate to ones that can stop them. This is a movement, Make America Great Again, MAGA, the likes of which our country has never seen before. And by the way, Christians have to vote. You know, I don't want to scold you, but you know that Christians do not vote proportionately. They don't vote like they should. They're not big voters. You know who else aren't voters? The NRA endorsed me very powerfully, strongest endorsement they can give, National Rifle Association. People that own guns and rifles are not big voters. They have to vote. If you don't vote, we're not going to win the election. If you do vote, we're going to win in a landslide. Too big to rig. We're going to win in a landslide. But Christians, you know, you'll go to church every Sunday, and Pastor Paula White and all.
Pastor who?
Fail.
All of the people, I understand, they're doing lockboxes in churches where people don't even have to go to vote. They can now vote in church. And if you do that, we're going to win by numbers that nobody's ever seen before. You know, you have tremendous power, but you just don't know that. But you have to use that power. Christians are a group that's known not to vote very much. You have to go out, at least this election. Just get us into that beautiful White House. Vote for.
Okay, here it is. It's at the 54-minute mark. And the text here in the transcript says, he says, I am a Christian.
That's certainly not what it sounded like when we listened to it several times in a row last night.
I agree. It doesn't sound like that. But anyway, let's just see what's going on here. I mean, that would be fine if he said that, because that would be, you know, he'd be telling the truth. And that's all right that he's not. It's okay that he's not a Christian. You know, that's the truth. And it would be good for him to. But, you know, that's right. We'll get to that in a minute. I'll give you some passages in a minute to help understand that. But let's see. 53.
Inappropriate racial.
We're listening here to former President Donald Trump speak at this event in West Palm Beach, Florida. We're going to step away for a quick commercial break.
Really?
Did they just edit? She talked over it, didn't she?
No, it's.
All right, well, we'll have to come back to that. We don't want to.
54:20. Let's see what happens.
He definitely said it.
Hang on, that was the feed. She keeps talking here.
Vote early, vote absentee, vote on election day. I don't care how, but you have to get out and vote. And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful.
You won't have to vote anymore. Why is that?
Because he's going to take power forever.
He's going to be a dictator? Is that what it is? Trump is a dictator. He just announced it right there. Democrats, seize upon it. He's told you there he's going to be a dictator. Yeah, I don't think that's what he meant. I think what he meant was there is that this one is extremely important. If we don't get out and vote Liz down, we may not have a country next time around. So, I mean, that's what he says. My faith is not in him. But interesting. Here comes the part in question, though.
Beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you.
See, there it was. What did he actually say? I love you, Christians. The transcript says, I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out and go to vote. It did sound like...
Keep going.
All right.
To vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote.
Yeah, we just played it. I think...
He said, I'm not Christian.
Well, the transcript says... Christians, I love you. I'm a Christian. I love you.
Well, he definitely didn't say that, though.
Let's check it out again. Let's slow it down. Let's go about 3/4.
Love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you, beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you.
I'm not Christian.
See,
I'm not Christian.
I love you, Christians. I'm not Christian. I think he was stumbling over it because I don't.
Well, we listened to it like 5 times last night, and we both agreed that it sounded like I'm not.
Yeah, full speed. It definitely.
Anyway,
someone could be forgiven for hearing that because he was stumbling over it. He wasn't very sure.
Well, look, they could have done anything with the tweak of AI. So.
Vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
You don't have to vote anymore after that.
He puts these little Easter eggs in every speech. Like as he goes through each state, he'll put these little Easter eggs in where you're like, huh, okay, that's an interesting admission. That's an interesting admission, you know. Like for the one that we were talking about with Project 2025 and him likening that to the radical left. So, yeah.
Communism and democracy. Whose side? Where is your heart? And where is your feeling?
Really, same than democracy. Democracy is
Fidel Castro, everyone.
Real. But many people used to call democracy seeing things that are not democracy. Democracy have some failings, not the idea. Those who use some of those who use democracy were. I am not communism. I am not agree with communism. My acts prove free press in Cuba. As you know, we have the full power in Cuba. Revolution. Destroyed all the enemy army.
The point James Lindsay is making here is this is how they speak. My idea is democracy. I'm not a communist. Our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. They're going to destroy our democracy. We're in a linguistic battle here, folks, because you know when it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck.
Yeah, they have the same vocabulary, but they have a different dictionary.
Yeah. Here's another shot at Paris. And the lights are out in Paris, it looks like. I don't know if they're back on. This was just a few minutes ago.
About 2 hours ago, I guess.
Yeah, pretty tough. Is that Notre Dame there in the background? It sure is lit up, but anyway, the new Notre Dame. Okay. Yeah, there's the Last Supper again. Brat Summer. Yeah, I guess we're going to get into Kamala Harris here in a minute, aren't we? Here's some more coverage from the UK. They're not happy about what's going on in France.
But there's confusion over this drag queen Last Supper thing.
You know, last night one thing that was evident about the opening ceremony was they were trying to push diversity, show how inclusive France is. But I do think they pushed the boat in one of the scenes where they tried to emulate the Last Supper, but they used drag queens and transgender women. And I just think...
That sounds a bit...
Yeah, I love drag. I love drag, but I think some things need to be sacred. And I think when you're bordering onto the line of mocking Christians... and
You think it was mockery?
I think obviously art is always subjective, but you are going to offend people if they are of a religious faith. You know, the Last Supper is something which is quite sacred in the Christian denomination, so to have that kind of appearing to be up for a mockery in that sense, I don't think that was good.
Because we've had some comments on it. I wondered what this was about.
Yes.
Darren said the ceremony was an abomination, mocking Jesus. They really don't know how to read a room. It was disgusting.
Because, to be honest, I don't think they would have done that about Islam, because they know that people would have gone to the streets and it would have been a wrap for the Olympics. But they feel like for Christianity, because we're quite subdued, let's make a mockery of it. And I just think some things are sacred, and maybe that could have just been left out of the show.
So I think what the intention was a lot of the theme of the show was actually recreating sort of paintings. And the Last Supper is in the Louvre. It's one of the great, you know. So I think that's what they were trying to do. I don't think they were trying to cause offence. I think the sort of, there was a whole drag section in the show. It was slightly baffling because the point of it was, you know, when they announced it, was to celebrate France's place in the European Union.
Well, there's a term called death work. Death works. It's a term used by sociologist Philip Reif. It refers to the act of manipulating the sacred symbols of a previous era in order to subvert and then destroy their original significance and purpose. In other words, profane them so badly, so completely, that they lose their meaning. Destroy their original significance. And of course, this is what we see happening with the Christian symbols right now. And this is the kind of thing that it leads to right here. Jesus could have been transgender, claims a Cambridge dean. Look at this. I was going to share some of the... let's listen to Biden. This is back when the Disrespect for Marriage Act, I believe, was signed. When he signed it, this was at the signing party.
Step toward equality, toward liberty and justice, not just for some, but for everyone. Everyone.
So it's interesting because I'm not aware of anybody really on either side who's trying to take away anyone's liberty or justice or access to health care or any. This is rhetorical weaponry.
We're creating a nation where decency, dignity, and love are recognized, honored, and protected. Today, I sign the Respect for Marriage Act into law. Deciding whether to marry, who to marry, is one of the most profound decisions a person can make. And as I've said before, and some of you might remember, on a certain TV show 10 years ago, I got in trouble. Marriage, I mean this from bottom of my heart, marriage is a simple proposition. Who do you love? And will you be loyal to that person you love? It's not more complicated than that.
Is it not? Is it not more complicated than that? I beg to differ, and I'll share with you in just a moment exactly where I think Joe Biden is. He's oversimplified to the point of working a death work there to marriage, and that's what the Disrespect for Marriage Act really is. It profanes an institution that God created and defined. For example, check this out. This is the kind of thing it causes in society. After birth abortion. Why should the baby live? Right? This is a real scholarly article here where it's being discussed and scientifically debated as to what are the implications here. They get into some sort of ethical. Abortion is largely accepted even for reasons that do not have anything to do with the fetus's health by showing perfectly healthy. By showing that, number one, both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons. The fact that both are potential persons is morally irrelevant. Adoption is not always in the best interest of actual people. The authors argue that what we call afterbirth abortion, killing a newborn, which is what it is, straight up murder, should be permissible in all the cases where abortion is, including cases where the newborn is not disabled. It doesn't matter. Perfectly healthy. Discussing infanticide, another version of the article, or a different conversation about it here. Journal of Medical Ethics. Look at this. These are many articles about discussing the ethics and the philosophy about infanticide. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, there's Chairman Mao. Yeah, they said Jesus could have been transgender. That was the claim there. I don't think we need to get into that. We covered that in a show, in the Deathworks show. You can find that on the channel in the Armor of Truth Live playlist. But all this overt, in-your-face evil, it might feel strange to people who, those of us who were blessed to live our early lives in a time and place that felt less chaotic. Christians in the West have been spared severe tribulation for about 3 centuries. But like the prophet Bob Dylan said, the times, they are changing. Immodesty, shamelessness, and radical perversion have breached the dam and flooded the village. But what we're witnessing right now is far more than people struggling with temptation, trying to overcome disordered ambitions. That's not what this is. The gospel has gone to every corner of the world. The name of Christ and the truth of salvation in his substitutionary atonement are well known. God's design for marriage between one man and one woman is well known. These are not mysterious ideas, as Joe Biden said. Marriage is just about committing to who you love. God's good design for marriage between one man and one woman is well known. God's good design and purpose of the male and female anatomy are well known. It's not controversial. And it's self-evident that God designed men and women to be complementary, not interchangeable. And he declared the naked intimacy between a man and a woman in the covenant of marriage to be very good. So for many good purposes, God gave us the uncomfortable rite of puberty. It's not meant to be delayed, stopped, drugged. It's meant to be experienced. And in God's great kindness, he created within us all sexual attraction. And the purpose of that urge is not esoteric, and it's not up for debate. It too, this purpose is well known. Sex is reserved exclusively for the covenant of marriage between one man and one woman for the purpose of, well, many things. Filling the earth with more people. Having large families. You know, in historically that would help to ensure generational prosperity, and I'm sure it would today too. And of course, in his grace and goodness, God has shared with all of humanity a small measure of his act of creation through the process of parenthood. But what goes unmentioned far too much these days is that God has designed the sexual bond between a man and a woman within the covenant of marriage to accomplish far more than that. It's about way more than what Joe Biden said there. It's just about who you love. I wonder if we should... Can we hear what he said one more time? I think it's pretty important.
Marriage is a simple proposition.
Marriage is a simple proposition.
Who do you love?
Who do you love?
And will you be loyal to that person you love? It's not more complicated than that.
That's it. Who do you love and will you be loyal to that person? That's what marriage is all about. That's it. That's pretty sad. That's pretty empty. That's vague, but that is all you have.
And almost no one remains faithful to one another. So,
and I wonder why. If it's just a proposition.
Because God is not at the center of their union.
Yeah. If marriage is just a proposition, then you can renege on a proposition. No, marriage is a covenant that a man and a woman make with God. And it accomplishes far more than what Joe Biden said here. The culture has corrupted this beautiful institution with sordid, surface-level ideas of sexuality that miss entirely the physical, emotional, and spiritual union between one man and one woman for life. You can see that in Genesis chapter 2, Matthew 19, 1 Corinthians 7, particularly Song of Solomon, chapters 4 and 5. There is where you'll find the celebration of this joyful gift God has given to us. Chapter 5, verse 1 reads, "Eat, friends, and drink. Drink your fill of love." In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul teaches each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. So this is good and honorable, Hebrews 13:4. There's nothing shameful, dirty, dishonorable about it. In fact, in their state of innocence, in Genesis 2:25, says the man and his wife were both naked and they were not ashamed. But once sin and then shame came into the world, we began to obfuscate God's good design and made it our priority to seek carnal knowledge where it ought not be sought. In Sodom and Gomorrah, radical sexual corruption caused the people there, specifically these were homosexuals, they tried to rape 2 angels who had arrived in the city there to minister to Lot and his wife, and they had to pull them in, protect them, because the horde was coming after them. A lot, I guess, a lot like what we see going on here. Not unlike it at all. Radical sexual corruption. Like all of God's gifts, all of God's good gifts, sex has been used for both good and evil throughout history. And most importantly, we have to remember in the scriptures, the intimate bond between a man and a woman in marriage is also a metaphor used for Christ's relationship with his church. Jesus is the bridegroom, and his followers are the bride. And so we wait for him to return in glory, that blessed hope when our faith in Christ will be consummated. And we'll see him as he is, and we will be made like him. We'll be changed forever, eternally, glorified. And we will gather together in victory for the wedding feast. So today, those who are openly making a mockery of gender, sex, marriage, and decency, pay attention to this. They're not doing so because they're ignorant of the truth. Read Romans 1, for example, 18 through 32. They know what they're doing. They know it's an abomination. They're not struggling to fight these temptations. In fact, what we're seeing here, it's the highest degree of wickedness. They know the truth and knowingly do evil in spite of the truth, simply for the sake of doing evil, wickedness for wickedness' sake. Because that's what they love. They not only love evil, but they encourage one another to participate and congratulate one another for being wicked. Like the pagans of antiquity, they celebrate their depravity as if it were a virtue, dragging more and more with them into darkness. With the blood of many on their hands, they encourage the world to follow them. Especially in the celebration of the festivals of their gods, they do acts that violate all reason, violate the natural order, and they even do it against their own welfare. They receive the due penalty for their error, as Romans 1 says, and they know it. So we're living in an age when biblical Christianity and the exclusivity of salvation in Christ alone are being challenged. And we, as ambassadors for Christ, must be aware of these challenges. We have to know what's happening, how to explain it, and how to help people who are struggling with it. We have to be equipped to recognize the opposing worldview and its message, and we need to be encouraged. That is, we need to be built up, strengthened. We need to encourage one another. And we need to act with courage in proclaiming this true message of Jesus Christ as the only Savior. No amount of gender fluidity and no amount of sexual freedom is going to save you. It's not going to make you feel free. It's slavery. I'll quote Carl Teichert here. He said, "Our salvation does not come through political unification. It won't come in Trump. It won't come in Harris or whoever. Our salvation does not come through cultural capitulation. And it does not take place through the works of our hands, either individually or collectively. No, it is through Christ, by Christ, and in Christ alone. Truly as Jesus Christ is the author of life and therefore the vanquisher of death." Can we get an amen to that? "He is the way, the truth, and the life." Unquote. So one of postmodernism's most profound impacts is to be found in the notions of how these identities are constructed. It's the most important thing that everyone knows how I identify, how I want people to see me. The unity of the individual subject has been replaced by multiple shifting and fragmented and often contradictory modes of identification. There is a profound human need to assert our identity when it's perceived to be threatened or ignored. Let's say that again. Are we hearing that? Inside, part of our fallen nature, there's a profound need, an urge, a desire in us all to assert our identity anytime we feel it's being squelched or threatened or ignored. Okay, let's go now somewhere to, let's go now to the Brat, right?
Kamala is Brat.
Well, it's Brat. It's the woke Brat.
We want to go into the K hive.
Yes, Brat Summer. There you go. Okay, should I just start playing these?
Yeah.
We're going to play you some of these memes. If you don't know what it means when they say Kamala is Brat, well, kind of a waste of time. But it's useful in a certain sense, and we'll help you understand what that is. We'll try to explain these things for you in a way that you don't come away knowing more about the culture than you do about Jesus.
I love Gen Z. Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? I can imagine what can be.
Yeah, there's the laugh. Here's a clip of Kamala Harris. Oh, she said earlier today. What was this one?
Well, it's being circulated again. It's going viral again, but I guess it's from a few months ago. One of her blunders.
She said that North Korea
is an ally.
Is our ally.
So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring. And today, there were several demonstrations of just that.
Do you think at any point there she realized what she was saying? So she's clearly just repeating words. Mm-hmm. There's no thinking going on there. Mm-mm. Brat Lives Matter, says there. All right, here's another remix of this.
It's the Kamala laugh.
Considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage.
Kamala with the laugh. That's so funny. She kept laughing. Is there something wrong with her, too?
The media said Joe Biden's president.
Is there something wrong with her? She kept laughing.
The media said what?
You know,
craziness.
The interesting thing about that clip, there was at least one demon-possessed person in there. In that
Copeland.
clip. At least one truly demon-possessed person, and it's that guy right there.
Yeah, that was an interesting add-in, right?
Right there, yeah. There you go. Yeah, it is.
But it's like, yeah, apparently this Kamala is Brat has really taken off. Mm. It's, you know, according to them anyway, there's a lot of hype about it. It's with the artist Charlie XCX. And we were growing up, like, you know, and I remember being in high school and being sort of intrigued by Bill Clinton. You know, you think that he's more relatable. So they come after you, you know, like when you're in that age of development, you don't know better. You just think, oh, these people seem a little bit cooler. And they've got this endorsement of Hollywood. They've got all their influencers. And this influencer, Charlie XCX, who's like, she's in music, like for the genre of electropop.
Drop this in here for you. So it's not the first time, right? This happens with every, well, maybe not every, since Clinton at least. Who was it? Jimmy Carter. with the Allman Brothers Band, right? That was one. And then here is here's Clinton, and what was it? Oh gosh, Journey. Don't Stop Believing. That became their tune.
That's hilarious.
And this is from Arsenio Hall show. And
like, oh, he's so cool.
Yeah. So let me get the.
He can be down to earth. He can be fun. You know?
I remember this. 1992. It persuaded me for a minute. I was, in '92. I was 21 years old. I was just old enough to drink, so I surely wasn't. I don't know what the deal is. We're not getting anything here. There we go. There's the link. Here we go.
Now I want to.
It happened on the Arsenio Hall show, and it just so happened that it wasn't this moment alone, but it was after this moment. There were a couple other things that were happening behind the scenes, but this is one of the things that really got him moving. And MTV, he started. He did interviews with MTV, so he got into the youth. This is what we're trying to point out here for you folks, is that it looks like Kamala Harris has no message. She really has no platform. She has no arguments. You heard clearly there, she thinks that North Korea is an ally. She may not really think that, but she's not aware enough in the moment to realize what's coming out of her mouth. So in order to get her in the White House, they're going to meme her, right? And you say some of the TikTok, it's really a TikTok campaign at this point.
Yeah, and think about that. Like if they're really taking off with TikTok, and that's a lot of Gen Z. And, like that's also TikTok obviously is a Chinese, the China platform. And
I'll play this clip and then we'll come back and you can tell us about
some of the stats.
Break down the generational to see, what's actually likely here. And you have to keep in mind, one of the things the Democrats do a lot is when they're polling, they'll take polls of a big swath of people out of a group of people who say they would vote for the Democratic candidate. Most of them are not likely to ever vote. And so that gets, you can't trust the polls. I'll share more of that with you. But this is what put Clinton in the hearts of young people in 1992.
Go way back to 1992, the year Nirvana's Nevermind went #1 on the U.S. Billboard 200 charts.
That was 1991,
stirred
Arsenio.
up controversy by ripping a picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live. You remember that? And Bill Clinton defeated George Bush in the presidential election. But before all that happened, this happened on my show.
Right, because it's all about who's cool.
That
it's not
was
about what
then
policies
Arkansas
they're
Governor
actually
Bill
pushing.
Clinton belting out a soul.
I said it's all about who's cool, not about what policies they're actually pushing. They're just, these people are going to be fully unaware of the actual policies that are coming out of that side.
I guess that's the point. What's going on here with Kamala?
Yeah, go ahead and watch that one right there to talk about the Divine Nine.
Yeah, which one?
That one.
This one? Right here?
Yes.
The Daily Show?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so 6 minutes?
Yeah. Sure, right now. There we go. And that would be an elitist message, right? So you've got these people that are really in power, that they're backing her, and then also she's appealing to sort of this brat culture, right? The culture of the brat. Yeah. Do you want to play that song at all?
Yeah, where is that? Is it in the bookmark?
I believe it is.
Is this it?
That might be the song, yeah.
Yeah, 360. All right, we can't play it, but so I can't play the song. We'll get it.
There might be another version if you scroll on down.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Dance.
Whatever. That's
Vapid, very vapid. But it's all about, being a brat and being not wanting to have a good girl persona. It's about rebellion, celebrating people in their sins.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So very much, what we would expect with what we're seeing out of a lot of the kids that are, buying into these Marxist woke ideas. And Gen Z, if you think about Gen Z, well, it's the end of an era, right? So when we start with the next generation, we're going to be in Generation Alpha. So I'm going to throw up some stats right there. If we just want to take a moment to think about this, Gen Z being the end of an era, the deconstruction that we're seeing, how they're just basically want to tear down the old world. So the end of the old world. Harris's campaign is even saying we're not going back, right? We're not going back to the old world. And we've got, of course, the Great Reset. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha being heavily influenced by China's TikTok tool to social engineer. And again, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus they're on board with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So those, don't be deceived, like BRICS is very much in alignment with all of that. And here's an example of a technology that's being utilized to reach Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And if you think about Generation Alpha, you've got year zero, which we've got this communist order that's coming in possibly, and the first wave of Generation Alpha will reach adulthood by, guess what, 2030s. So think about Agenda 2030 as one of their milestones for the Agenda 21 century plan, Agenda 21 for the 21st century. So we just wanted to put that out there, so you just can see how her campaign is operating, and we'll see what kind of legs that it ends up having.
Yeah, here's a little video here. It's talking about, this is our girl. Look at our girl here. Look how cool our girl is. Look at her go. And then here is your guy.
Yeah, like she's young, she's fun, and here's the old fuddy-duddy,
Yeah, because that's how we need to save the country. Is we need somebody that's cool, right? Somebody that's 60 years old that they're saying is really young and fun, right? Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen to one of her quotes. I'm going to put it up right here. Culture, it is a reflection of our moment and our time. The present culture is how we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning. We have to find ways to also express the way we feel about the moment in terms of just having language and a connection to how people are experiencing life. I mean, what a word salad that is, right? And if you could back it up to her interview with Drew Barrymore, that would be a good one to segue from here. There it is.
In my head that we all need a mom. I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now.
Yeah.
But in our country, we need you to be Mamala of the country.
Mamala. Mamala. Everybody needs a Mamala, right?
And as a woman who respects so much and wants to share and wants to be confident and has no ounce of me that has competitiveness.
Yeah.
When we lift each other up, we all rise.
That's exactly right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
However, we need a great protector. Keep thinking and
great protector. What about a great?
When we lift each other up, we all rise.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we now? Let's go back down. What was this?
That's a diagram about the virtues of Brat, I suppose.
Yeah, So this is all, this is really interesting. They're trying to take control of the information space, to flood the information space with their information. It doesn't matter what the information is. It just, as long as you look at it, as long as you're consuming it and you're taking it in, as long as the kids who are easily influenced will take it in. And, it's interesting that Matthew Littlefield's article, how the wicked subverted the West with story, discusses how Satan became the liberator of women, and from John Milton's work Paradise Lost, he never intended for Satan to be
the hero,
taken as a hero, but
the occultists decided that they would make him a hero.
Yeah, but people did.
The character of Lucifer in Paradise Lost, yeah.
Right. So, he just talks about in the article where did this grand movement of feminist equality stem from? Feminist equality in the West, and which we talked about here quite a bit. The transgender movement grew up out of feminism. It used the same tactics. It's the same people. It's the same argument. It's the same theory. But the movement was inspired by Lucifer's offer to the woman in the garden, as expounded by Milton, and interpreted through romantic poets. Lucifer's offer to the woman of equality with God and usurpation of her husband's role was the impetus for the feminist revolution, the literal beginning of the modern chant, down with the patriarchy. This always meant down with God, and it was literally inspired by the devil. The prophecy of Scripture was surely fulfilled. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he will rule over you. So Milton's story inspired many, literally satanic people, to take up a cause that is nowhere spoken of in a positive light in the Bible. Specifically, that is equality, and particularly feminist equality. Radically minded people took up the torch of enlightening the world with this Promethean idea. Not to say that they all genuinely believed in Satan, that's not the point, or Lucifer, but the issue is that they were inspired by his attributes, what he stood for. They wanted to push society in a direction which was consistent with satanic values, which is straightforward, just a rejection of a biblical worldview. And in fact, the fact that some didn't believe at all and were disenchanted and didn't believe that Satan was a real figure at all, that they were even more dangerous for their lack of belief. They were less restrained in their approach to push against the structures of society, and they particularly pushed their views through the mediums of story and poetry. And that was, Summer had an excellent idea the other day that to think about what we're seeing in the culture now through the lens of storytelling. And we brought that up in the last show a little bit, and we'll be returning to that over and over, because that's really the most relevant way to look at everything we're seeing here, because they're going to try to meme her to the White House, and to meme her to the White House, they have to tell a story. They have to create a character called Kamala.
Mamala is Brat.
Right. Yeah. They need a mom. It's the serpent who is identified as the good guy in this story. God is blamed as the originator of death, earthquakes, and blight. God is oppressive. He's a homicidal maniac, as Richard Dawkins says in the Old Testament. Can you see this inversion at work here? It's not, they want you to believe that it's all about fun and being young and that. No, this is coming from a very dark place. And it is specifically designed to subvert a Christian world. Breaker of gender stereotypes. Social justice before the term was coined. Utopia. And so over time, society was slowly influenced towards change through story. And we saw in our last show, we talked about Birth of a Nation.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think, it was interesting to me to try to think about what was D.W. Griffith thinking. Why did he think that story would be a good story? And I think it indicates that, one of two things was happening. It was either some kind of, right? It was a design to divide people.
Yeah.
Or D.W. Griffith was just, it was myopic in his worldview and had no idea that what he was making was going to affect people that way. Maybe he thought he was just telling a story about what happened in the South. Nevertheless, the result is the same, isn't it?
When you've got the Antichrist spirit operating in people, whether they're aware of it or not, whether they're intentional or not. I mean, we do know that when he passed away, he was given that memorial service by the Freemasonic Temple in Hollywood. He's got one of the stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And so there's that. They certainly decided to take some credit for that, right? Because they associated themselves with D.W. Griffith's work.
So that's the dialectic of race. And today we see the dialectic of race still being played, but more than anything today.
Gender.
Well, it was somewhere around the civil rights movement where, being black was the new gay.
Mm-hmm.
Gay is the new black. However it goes. Yeah, gay became the new black. Because ultimately the goal right from back in the 18th century, when this Lucifer idea really caught hold in story in the West, the idea that one day all gender distinctions would be abolished. The thing about D.W. Griffith and the thing about Milton and the thing about all of these memes, story is almost never neutral. Just like we say so often that there is no neutrality, especially when it comes to morality. And all of these people are definitely making claims to objective moral values and duties. So they're definitely not telling a neutral story. So this came up in the 17th or the 18th century. It's known today as propaganda, marketing, public relations, and there's always been an undercurrent of this in pop culture and, of course, in filmmaking, as Summer pointed out very well in the last show when we were talking about Birth of a Nation. And we'll get into intolerance at some point soon, too, because that one's very interesting. D.W. Griffith's follow-up. It seems like he was either maybe he was, I don't know.
The thing is, though, is what was so striking for us when we first sat down and talked about it in the living room is that, you've got Birth of a Nation, which is a terrible message about black people. It's awful. It's racist. It depicts them unfairly. It's very unkind. And then the movie that he produces right after that, like a year later, that comes out is all about how people are intolerant, and it's about bigotry. And, so it's like presenting these two worldviews side by side, like in such close proximity. And of course, people are going to identify with one or the other. I mean, also, was it some sort of like they're always trying to track the opinions and attitudes of people to see how they can be persuasive. Were they genuinely doing some sort of psychological experiment, to see who would identify with one movie over the other and how that would play out in the culture? And there's no doubt that Birth of a Nation had a very destructive and horrible, traumatizing effect on our culture in America. And so it's this idea that here's this technology that's like really cutting edge, and then they used it for evil purposes, for purposes that are not godly. And
yeah, that's what Littlefield is saying there. That story is powerful and it can be used by either side, and we need to recognize when it is being used against us. And it's a tool that we have to take up ourselves if we wish to see evil's work undone. We have to recognize how this process is done so that we can think how to undo it. Because our whole society has been undone by storytellers with wicked intent. It's an excellent article by Littlefield, and I'll support what he's saying there by something from the book from Jack Posobiec here, 4D Warfare. He's talking about exactly this, the tyranny of labels. Labels, like Brat. Or white supremacist, Nazi, conspiracy theorist, Russian-linked, racist, sexist. You're far right. Anti-Semitic, misinformation, disinformation, doxer, harasser, hoaxer, liar, peddler, troll, fake news, money grubbing, and fraud. These are terms that when you see them in an article describing someone, you know that the article you're reading is most likely propaganda. It's most likely storytelling for wicked intent. And here's why. Mischaracterizations are dangerous because, like Jordan Peterson, he was called a racist for refusing to lie, refusing to bear false witness and use these gender pronouns to call a he a she, or a she a he. And he was called racist for that. That doesn't follow, does it? But these frequent mischaracterizations are dangerous because they remove credibility from the labels themselves. And so when one side does that, they mischaracterize people using these severe labels, what they're actually doing is they're making it so those labels can never be used against them. Remember, what is it, Summer? You accuse the other person of the thing you don't want to be called.
Yeah, it's projection.
Right. Which renders them unable to accurately portray those groups that purvey hateful or bigoted beliefs, such as genuine white supremacists, which exist on the left, the Democrats. In fact, they've always been Democrats.
Well, think about it too. Like both sides of the political aisle, both narratives are telling people that if you don't vote for me, the other one is going to be an authoritarian dictator. An authoritarian dictator. And it makes me think of that quote that I've got up on the screen right now by Jean from the Doomsday Clock. If the world government cause is to triumph, people must be made to feel that their own security, freedom, and prosperity, yes, their very survival, depend on the creation in our time of a world rule of law. So a new system, right? Like this degradation and deconstruction of the rule of law. It's all purposefully being, smashed.
Yeah.
And also the message is that if you don't vote for me, the result is, tyranny.
Yeah, that's a great point. For example, here's just another anecdote to drive this home. Antifa is a failed PSYOP, for example. Just an example of one of those PSYOPs that ended up failing. Kind of like ISIS ended up failing. But Antifa, domestic terrorism. Antifa was intended to start a narrative that Trump creates violence. In reality, thanks to the way social media works today, there are some benefits to it. Thanks to the efforts of countless thousands, that narrative has been replaced by the observable truth that the real violence comes from them. The real violence comes from the radical left. I don't even know if it's the radical left. It just comes out of the left now, because the whole thing has moved to left, to the radical side now. A soft cultural revolution is happening in the United States. The end state goal of these revolutionaries is socialism or communism, or we might here call it communitarianism, which is the blending of fascism and communism.
Well, to be fair, I just wanted to drop in a point. They've weaponized the gay movement, right? They've weaponized this idea of white supremacy. They've weaponized all of these people groups against one another, So when we say, the radical left, we're talking about the weaponized groups, the people that they're operating through right now to come out and destroy things and burn things and spray paint things, obviously there are normal people out there who want to not see our society destroyed and taken down.
Yeah, but they burn things and tear things down, just like another moment in history, another cultural revolution in history. These tactics that we see, right, from Brat to all of it, these concepts are similar to the Chinese Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao. Chairman Mao destroyed Chinese culture. He tore down statues, tortured individuals, and killed anyone who stood in his way. Everyone who challenged or even threatened to challenge the rule of the supreme communist dictator was destroyed. But before they could be destroyed, they had to be deemed a danger. They had to be deemed anti-something, like this movement. And I do believe that, we understand that red and blue, left and right, Republican, Democrat, conservative, whatever, these when you get down to that level of power, they're all really working for the same goals. The major goals usually are, like, the United States has progressed over the decades regardless of who's been in office. Totalitarian police state has been gaining strength through Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't matter. But we have to be clear-headed about it and understand that what we see on the left is something that we can point to in the not-too-distant past and what its outcomes were, what its dangers are, and we can see them using the exact same tactics. In all honesty, I haven't really seen fascism coming out of the right. You might disagree with me. If you do, let us know about it. But I think the greatest danger is coming from the left. What say you, Summer?
Well, certainly it's being used. It's being used that way in the last several years, and in general, this idea that you're going to be liberated, like Woodstock being a key example, or the rave movement, or the punk scene. Like it's typically going to be coming from the libertarian side of society.
So I've always tried to warn. Sorry about that. I've always tried to warn those who get involved with the libertarian movement, especially those who are claim that they're anarchists. You got to be very careful with that. That's a bad idea. That's not something you want to be. And the libertarian movement also leads to the same logical conclusion. There's only one. There's only one choice. Well, actually, there are.
Well, think about think about like Lucifer, the Liberator, the Libertarian Party, liberty.
That's right.
Like if we don't serve God and we don't obey God, then our liberty is going to turn to tyranny.
It's like Paul says in Galatians, I believe. You've been set free in Christ. What will you do with your liberty?
Yes.
Don't use your liberty as an opportunity for the flesh.
That's right.
Jim Dennison says, is this Jim or is this Ryan? This is Ryan Dennison. He says, regardless of how you plan to vote this fall, the apparent shift in Donald Trump's approach should inspire all of us to pray that his outlook on life and more importantly, his relationship with God really does change. Do you believe that if we pray for these people that anything could change? Or has your heart been so hardened? Are you so cynical today that you think it's a lost cause? There's no point in praying for any leader, Kamala, Trump, whoever. How about your mayor? How about the guy, your city planner? You know, the guy who determines how your property is going to be classified. Well, I just watched that one. What's it called? The whatever.
City planning?
Yeah, no, it's a term. I just whiffed on it right now. But your local governments. Are we praying for our leaders? If we want to live a peaceful life, Paul wrote to Timothy that's how you do it. You pray for your leaders. You submit to the authorities until they command you to do that which God doesn't allow. Or try to... let me finish what Ryan says here. This story should also inspire us to pray that the Lord will use that event, like the assassination attempt on Trump, a thing that happened in the real world that has become a story. A story is being told about it almost immediately after it happened. Never let a crisis go to waste. Start spinning the narrative about it, right? Just last week, Christopher Wray sat there and testified that the FBI wasn't sure whether he got shot or not. Could have been shrapnel, could have been this. Well, I mean, the evidence from the investigation, they had the shell casings from the gun that was on the roof. I know some of you don't trust any of that, and that's fine. The point is, there's a story there, and somebody's going to take it and use it. They're going to spin it. But this story should inspire us to pray that the Lord will use these events to help each of us evaluate our own relationship with Christ, because that's foremost. And see if there are any areas where we've slipped back into an acceptance of sin rather than a reliance on Him. And so do you believe? Is your heart hardened so much that you think Donald Trump can't come to faith? You don't think God could bring Donald Trump to faith if he had decreed it to be so? Does the Bible tell us to pray for our leaders? Why does the Bible tell us to pray for our leaders? Because that's how we live. Quiet and peaceful lives. That's how we have good governments. So for all of us who are so cynical and hard-hearted that we've just decided we're not going to, none of them are worthy of my prayers, I would suggest that's a very dangerous way to go through this. I'm not calling on you to be a patriot or anything. I'm just calling on you to live out your faith. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And part of that is praying for our leaders. I would like for America to live, to stay strong. I would like it to return to its better days. I'd like to make America good again, if that's all right. I don't think it's unbiblical for me to want that, for me to desire that, because in trying to achieve that, I'm living out my faith. I'm praying for these leaders. I'm involving myself in the culture. This side of heaven, it will never be too late to fall away from the Lord and live as though our salvation has no present impact on our way of life. But fortunately, it will also never be too late to turn back to God and seek a closer walk with Him. Preach the gospel to yourself, to your own heart. Where do you fall on that spectrum today? Are you walking toward God or drifting away from Him? Ultimately, those are the only two options. Not Kamala Harris, not Donald Trump, not left wing, right wing. It's not about whether or not you're so brilliant that you've identified it's all corrupt, so I'm going to sit on the outside. It's not about that either. Two options. You're either moving toward God or you've turned your back on God. Which is true for you today? That's the question. That's all I've got.
Amen to that. And I've got the graphic up.
Okay, yeah, that's what we've seen.
Correlation.
Over since if I can remember this is from 1940, there was around 73 or so % of people that reported they were a member of a local body of believers. That would be a church. And over time, you can see what happened there. In about the year 2000, started in about 1999. Look at that drop. Look at that severe drop. Again, the question is, are you a member of a body of believers? Do you belong to a church? It didn't even necessarily mean Christian church in the question. It just meant, are you a Jew? Are you a Christian? Not many Muslims in 1940 here, but still. The point being there that faithful people, even people who are faithful in Judaism or Jehovah's Witnesses, even Mormons, it makes for a more peaceful society, and we want to evangelize those people for sure. But the point is, look what happened at the turn of the century. It just plummeted down. What is that there, Summer? Is it in the
47?
47. So it went from 73, 70 something down to 47%. At the rate,
and I'm sure it's dropped even more because that was 2020.
Yeah. I want to point out to you one thing before we go. If you see the way that's falling there on that graph, from 1940 to 1999, that rate of decline of the church, it was declining for sure, but very slowly. To get to the point, to get to 47%, it would have taken 400 years. I remember figuring this out in 2021 when we found this data, and it shocked me. It would have taken 400 years for America to get to that 47% being members of a church. And we did it in 20 years. Under 20 years, or around 20 years. Something changed. Somebody turned their back on God. Somebody decided that it wasn't worth being involved. It wasn't worth taking your faith into the voting booth. Just sit on the outside and watch it burn, because we've got it all figured out. We know what's happening. We're so smart. We can see it. We're just going to stay outside. Right?
Yeah.
And that's. I just want to encourage
and
you
a
folks.
Huge amount of people that profess to be Christian are saying that they don't even believe that the Bible is true.
Yeah, it's a good question in the chat. Someone that's Carolina Terry says, doesn't the demoness Lilith play into this too? He was talking about earlier when we were talking about Littlefield's article. Look up Matthew Littlefield on Substack. Also, younggospelpreacher.com.
Young Gospel Minister.
Younggospelminister.com. If you don't want to go to Substack or can't get there, I can't navigate it very well myself. But you can go to Young Gospel Minister and you can find where Matthew Littlefield has written there. You can search and you can find the satanic feminism articles. They're huge. They're in depth. And he's citing a lot of Per Faxnell's work, the book that Summer has now that we'll be working through.
Very edifying.
Yeah. So she's asking about Lilith. Yeah, Lilith is, as far as we know, is not a real personage, just a name that was used in apocryphal texts. But the idea is still there, right? Because Lilith was she was different from Eve, because Lilith was a woman of agency. Eve sinned. Lilith was different. She's like the people we talked about at the top of the show, the Romans 1 people who knew God's righteous decree and purposefully thwarted it, purposefully went their own way. Eve sinned. Right? Lilith did more than that. She sinned, celebrated her sin. I mean, the character as it's mentioned, she represents exactly what we were talking about at the top of the show. She represents exactly what we're hearing here in Littlefield's article about satanic feminism. When you sin against God, and you do it for the sake of sinning against God. You do it because you know his righteous decree, and you just sin for the sake of being wicked. Wickedness for wickedness' sake. That's the kind of movement that we see happening at the Paris Olympics. That's what we see in the transgender and the most of the LGBTQ plus movement. People who sin simply because they love it. Here's what it says in the Bible about that, and then we'll be done. You want to see our society, you want to see how it goes down. First of all, Paul says here, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes," to the Jew first and also the Greek. The gospel is the power, folks. That's our purpose. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, "The righteous shall live by faith." And here comes the bad news. "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth." See, they know the truth, they just refuse to honor it. They suppress it. They numb their conscience to the truth. "For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them." So we start off here in what people can see in creation. That's the level there. And they did not. So we're talking about here maybe theory of evolution, right? We can see that a creation requires a creator. It requires a purposeful, personal creator. His invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived always. And because they knew this, and they knew God and didn't honor him as God or give thanks to him, they lost their minds. They became futile in their thinking. And their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and idolaters. And as you can see, as Romans 1 moves on here, therefore God gave them up. Starts off here with the idea of, no, God didn't create this. This universe is eternal. So it starts off with the theory of evolution by natural selection, macroevolution, the idea that we all just arose from one single-celled organism. That's where the corruption begins. And God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts. Now something else is happening here. Here we see that something else. Now the reverberation, the consequences of their previous sin has led to something else, has led to some kind of corruption here. The lusts of their hearts, to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves. There's the sexual revolution. Because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. So there's a sexual revolution. You don't need to be married. You can just, sex is good because you just it feels good, and it can't be wrong if it feels good, right? And we're liberated. Lucifer is the liberator of women. And then something else happens here. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. Their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men, likewise, gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another, for other men, committing shameless acts with other men. And look at this, and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. In fact, they knew all of this. They knew that it would cause disease. It would cause all kinds of problems. You're going against reason, and you're going against the order of nature. That has consequences, and they knew it, and they did it anyway and received the due penalty for their error. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind. It's getting worse. To do what ought not to be done. So they were filled with all manner of unrighteousness. Remember those men in Sodom and Gomorrah who wanted to rape the angels? Evil, covetousness, malice. They're full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They're gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, and ruthless. Sounds like today. Though they know God's righteous decree, that those who practice such things deserve to die. There it is again. They know what they're doing. They know that it comes with a death penalty. They not only do it, but they give approval to those who practice them. Not only do they do it, but they celebrate it, they encourage it, and now we have a whole culture around supporting it. And one of the presidential candidates is all about this.
Kamala is Brat.
There you go. That's what it means, right?
Yeah.
That's what Brat means right there.
Mhm.
It's to purposefully turn against.
Yeah, they don't want to be
God's
the
order.
good girl. Like, you're not the good girl.
Rebelling against, the notion of the good girl, meaning the girl who wants to honor God, the girl who wants to
submit to God.
To submit to God, exactly. That's it. Okay, that's probably enough.
Yeah,
for today.
that's enough.
All right.
Anything
you want to?
Nope. That's
Okay.
good. That's a wrap.
All right. Thank you, my
guys.
friends. We'll see you.
Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, we'll see you again here very soon.
See you again, guys. God bless you.
The hammer comes down and beats you over the head for the rest of your life with a big national security stick. And so that people learn to duck their head and not speak up. Because bad idea now.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. Citizens are advised to take the following steps.
Find us, armoroftruth.net.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a